Mercedes has launched a subcompact product onslaught in the United States. Following the success of the CLA and GLA models, they now have 4 subcompact entries in their lineup. You've got the A-Class, which is just a normal sedan, the CLA class, which is a 4-door coupe. You've got the GLA once again, which is sort of a coupe-like SUV, and now you have this, the GLB. The GLB is way more boxy than the GLA. It's a little bit larger as well, but still based on the same platform. Mercedes is sort of marketing this as a baby G-Wagon. Now the G-Wagon is over $100,000, has lots of off-road capability. Not everybody can afford that, and not everybody is going to use the off-road ability, which is why the GLB is more of a mainstream option. Now we've got the 2021 Mercedes-AMG GLB 35, which is the first of 2 upcoming AMG variants. I'm going to explain a little bit more about what that means, so let's find out what the GLB 35 is all about. So let's start with a quick walk around of the 2021 Mercedes GLB 35. You can tell it has a very boxy shape. I guess you kind of have to strain to see G-Wagon elements in it, but come on, this is about as close as Mercedes could make it without making it literally a G-Wagon clone, and there's no way they could do that at this price point. So I think this is really adorable. It looks a lot better than other boxy-based vehicles like the Kia Soul or the Scion XB. This is definitely the most handsome box I think there's been. We've got these curvy, really cool headlights. Of course, because we have the 35 AMG model, we've got the signature Panamericana grille that goes on a lot of their models. We also have like a night package that gets you this black diffuser. We also have a bunch of optional things here. We've got 21-inch wheels. These look fantastic. They're about $2,000, but they do look really cool. We've got our Turbo 4MATIC badge letting us know that we have a powerful turbocharged 4-cylinder engine under the hood. I love that it still has roof racks even on the AMG model, which is pretty cool. And I don't even mind the plastic body cladding because this is supposed to be sort of like a rugged looking vehicle. Back here we also have a boxy shape with some really, cool headlights. We even have some cool looking exhausts with a cool diffuser back here. Now this is an AMG model, but it is only sort of a pseudo AMG model. I know it's getting a little bit confusing with all the numbers Mercedes has out there in their AMG cars, but the 35 models are what the 43 cars kind of were. It sort of sits below the fully fledged AMG models. So if you're looking at one of these subcompact AMGs, a 45 is going to be a full AMG, a 35 is going to be sort of a mid-level AMG product. All right, so now that we've checked out the exterior, let's go ahead and hop inside the GLB 35 where, wow, Mercedes continues to amaze me with their designs, although I did just trigger the voice command. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now the thing here is that this interior is a little bit hit and miss for me in terms of its material quality. It's a lot of look, don't touch. So we've got this really cool sort of faux wood here. It's really neat looking and very futuristic. It doesn't look like stuffy or old at all, but when you touch it, it definitely feels cheap. We've got this nice metal as well. Also looks very nice until you knock on it and then you realize that's not real, and then that's hard plastic, and you've got some hard plastic surfaces a lot in this car. Now this is an entry-level Mercedes model, and there are a lot of vehicles in this category, in the entry-level luxury segment, that do feel similar, but I think this does feel a little bit cheaper than some of its competitors, like maybe from BMW and Audi. But what they have done is they've given it a fabulous design, and the things that you touch the most, like the climate controls, the air vents, which are illuminated at night. I love the ambient lighting in this car, the steering wheel, all of those things feel like they belong in like a six-figure Mercedes, so it really kind of offsets itself. So the steering wheel in particular is interesting because you do not get this AMG steering wheel as standard on the GLB 35, but it's like optional, and it's not that expensive either. I think it's like $400, and then you have to add these little controls down here as like another optional extra. You'll notice there's a ton of optional extras on this car. Almost nothing comes standard for under $50,000. But I love this steering wheel. It does feel like the ones you get on the six-figure cars, you know, the full AMGs and stuff. You've got the nice metal buttons, the nice metal paddle shifters. I love that it's perforated leather here on the grips, making it nice and grippy. You can get this in Alcantara too, but I wouldn't. I would get it in this perforated leather. Now, there are two ways to control. There's a million ways actually to control all of these systems. So this little BlackBerry style pad over here controls the gauges, so you can switch what information you have here on the middle. You can also change what's on the tachometer side and the speedometer side in case you don't want those showing. So here I have my tach showing. I can have my horsepower, my boost. I can have a G meter. I can even have a little mini map as well. And this is the like sporty design, but there are a bunch of different themes that you can do on here. You can go back to like a classic gauge setup. I actually like this one a lot as well. So this one's really cool. If I come over here to the gauge, I can actually have my little mini map like in the gauge where the tachometer would be. That's really cool as well. So yeah, there's just different ways to play around with this. It can be a full map as well, which is really cool. Mercedes does one of the most configurable center consoles as well. Now we get over here to MBUX, the Mercedes-Benz user experience. So this is interesting. There are a million ways to interact with this. Whichever one you find the most comfortable is probably what you're going to end up doing the most. It is a touch screen, which is very simple. You can just come over here and touch it if you want. You also have this touch pad down here with home buttons all around it for navigation, radio, phone, things like that. So you kind of swipe across that. If you don't even want to take your hands off the wheel, you have another one of those little BlackBerry style controllers here. And you can swipe across and control it that way, or you can just tell it, hey Mercedes, and then you can activate the voice command, which can also be triggered here on the steering wheel. The voice command works extremely well in this car. You can set the climate controls, tell it a radio station, things like that. One of the better voice command systems that I've experienced. Now, I mentioned that there are a lot of beautiful ambient lights in this car. You can see the vents have these little lights in them here. They look gorgeous at night, and there are a million different ways to play with that here in the comfort settings. So I can come in here to the ambient lightings, and I can set it to be either multicolor, where it kind of switches between two different colors, or I can just have a single color. If I do go in the single color, look at this, you get an entire like click wheel of colors. There's so many to choose from, and it has different effects too. So if I raise the temperature on my side, this vent turns red, and if I lower it, this vent is going to turn blue. Looks really cool at night. I love little gimmicky stuff like that as well. Now, because we have an AMG model, this is a performance-oriented Mercedes, there are a million ways to customize how it drives. This is a 302 horsepower car. It does 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, although when we get it on the road, you're going to see with launch control, it feels much quicker than that even. And just like the infotainment, there are a million ways to play with stuff here. We have these little optional controllers. I forget, Mercedes has a name for them here, but they're really cool. So over here, you can control the suspension. You can go to Sport, Sport Plus, so if you just want the suspension stiffer but nothing else. And you can switch what these buttons do. So this is suspension. This is the auto stop start off and on. AMG Dynamics, traction control. So you can switch what these do, or you can control them all at once here on this dial. So you have Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus. Click it for individual. To the left puts you in sort of a slippery snow mode, so you can customize it that way. And then all of these controls, again, so much redundancy here, are mirrored over here. So we've got our transmission settings, traction control, our suspension, all of that is right here over by this little hand rest. So a million ways to customize this car, although I will note this one is pretty well optioned, but we are still missing a ton of stuff here. No adaptive cruise control as standard, no 360-degree camera as standard, just a regular backup camera. We're missing ventilated seats. I think it's like $400 to get heated seats, and then like another $500 on top of that to get ventilated seats. I'm like, if you're going to spend $400 on heated seats, you might as well spend $900 on ventilated seats. So I'm a little bit disappointed in all the things that are missing, especially in terms of driver assists. I wish Mercedes would just bundle those as standard, but with how fun this car drives, I don't really miss the driver aids all that much. Now, I usually hate these little subcompact luxury cars like this because they're very small in the back, and honestly, you're better off going with like a larger compact regular car like a Mazda CX-5. But Mercedes has really utilized the space well on the GLB. You get 38.1 inches of legroom back here, which is more than what you get in a lot of compact options, even like the BMW X3 and Audi Q5. Now, they've done that with sliding seats. You can slide these all the way forward. Maybe you have a car seat in here, you don't need it. That'll give you more cargo capacity. Or if you have the third row option, yes, this car does have a third row, you can slide it all the way back to get more. And then if you pull this little strap here, you can recline the seats quite significantly. So now in this position, I'm only about 5'8", 5'9" on a good day, but I have plenty of room back here. The boxy shape gives me a lot of headroom, and I do have air vents back here like a proper luxury car should. And I even have this little pop-out door down here that has a 115-volt outlet and 2 USB-C chargers. So now let's see how practical the little GLB is. Now, this might be a subcompact luxury vehicle, but it is one of the most practical ones in its segment. You get 24 cubic feet of space back here. That's bigger than an Audi Q3, that's bigger than a Volvo XC40. Only the BMW X1 has a little bit more, but this does have a lot more than a BMW X2 behind the second row. Now, if you fold down the second row seats, you're gonna get 64 cubic feet of space. Now, that is more than what you'll get in the X1. It's more than you'll get in pretty much any other vehicle of this class. I think the boxy shape really helps with the total amount of storage space back here, making it very practical indeed. Much more practical than the GLA or the X2, which are sort of coupé vehicles. Now, you can also get this with a third row. I have tried it out. This particular vehicle doesn't have it. It is a very tiny back row. It's really only for children or adults in a very short trip. But when you put that up, you're going to lose a lot of cargo space, only about 5 cubic feet behind the third row. But when you combo the fact that you can at least get it with a third row, that's helpful in a pinch, even on the AMG 35 model, plus the boxy proportions of the total cargo capacity, I think the GLB is the most practical option in the compact luxury, subcompact luxury space. It even borders on the next size up, the compact luxury space. All right, so let's get underway in the GLB 35 AMG. So the base GLB 250 comes with a 2-liter turbocharged engine. That's actually the only engine you can get in a GLB, but there's very different levels of tune. The 250 model is gonna be fine for most people with 221 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, and that goes out through an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, since we have the 35 AMG model, which as I've mentioned is not a full AMG model, it's sort of a pseudo AMG, but it is still really quick. You're getting like Subaru STI levels of power here, 302 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That's going to put it right on par with the BMW X2 in its M235i M235i configuration. Like that one produces right at around 300 horsepower, and again, that goes out through an 8-speed dual clutch transmission to a 4MATIC all-wheel drive system with a 50-50 power distribution. This is a front-wheel drive based vehicle, as I've mentioned. It is based on the same platform as the A-Class, the CLA class, and the GLA class. So let's first talk about what it drives like normally. So this is the AMG-ified version of the GLB, so it is going to be a lot stiffer, although the base GLB is not exactly the most plush luxury car on the market. This is a subcompact sort of entry level to the Mercedes lineup, although the GLA is a little bit less expensive than this. So don't come expecting S-Class levels of comfort here. I have it all set on comfort right now, and the suspension is fine when you're on like a normal road, but you can definitely tell over the rougher stuff that the GLB 35 does bounce you around quite a bit. And you can adjust the suspension like independently, as I've shown on the interior bit. If you put the suspension into its Sport Plus setting, this thing does feel extremely firm. Now in its comfort setting, the transmission shifts very smoothly. I do like this 8-speed DCT. It's much better than the old DCT that you used to get in the CLA and GLA a generation ago. It works very well in automatic mode, although I will note that when you're in comfort mode, it is a little bit sleepy. You have to put your foot on the gas quite significantly to get any good acceleration out of it. But since this is an AMG, we gotta see how fast it is. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna twist the dial all the way into Sport Plus mode, and I'm gonna show you launch control. So AMG's launch control, one of the easiest to use. I love how simple it is. Just bring the car to a complete stop, put it in Sport Plus, put your left foot on fully down on the brake, floor the gas, and you'll go off very easily. Here we go, race start. Oh, yes, wow. You notice how savage those shifts are. I mentioned how smooth this dual clutch is when it's in comfort mode. It is not smooth in Sport Plus. It kicks you. Wow, it executes such crisp upshifts. Pop, pop, pop. I love it. And then now that I'm in Sport Plus, watch what happens. There we go. Instant throttle response. The transmission downshifts super quickly in Sport Plus mode. This thing is not a hot SUV. This is a hot hatchback, the way this thing drives. I love it in Sport Plus mode. Here, I don't mind the stiff suspension so much because it is really keeping me in line. I know this is a front-wheel drive vehicle, and it definitely feels like a front-wheel drive vehicle. It does not drive like something with a rear bias system, but somehow Mercedes has found a way to make that work in their favor. This thing is a hoot. It almost drives like an STI, like a tall lifted STI. I love it. It sounds good. That engine makes such a good grunt. The 8-speed automatic is crisp when you're in its automatic setting in Sport Plus mode. I can go ahead and put it in manual. Now I can use these awesome paddle shifters that are nice metal. Oh my gosh, this is great. I love it in manual mode. I love it in automatic mode. I have complete confidence in the 4MATIC system around these bends. It definitely understeers, 100% it understeers. It's, you know, a tall riding little box, but for a little box, this thing handles incredibly. It's almost what like the Kia Soul is, but like at like 5 times the level and performance of that. I know that might sound like an insult, but I love how the Kia Soul drives, and this is sort of like the more aggressive version of that. This thing is hilarious. I'm really enjoying the way this drives. It's definitely expensive. It's definitely stiff. We do have the optional AMG ride control, and in its Sport Plus setting, it's not very comfortable. So here's what I do. You can set up an individual mode. So what I do is put everything in Sport Plus, and then I take the suspension and I put that back into comfort. That is my ideal drive mode here, because everything aside from the suspension, I like to be in the full race mode. Makes this thing hilarious to drive. I so much prefer this to like the BMW 2 Series Grand Coupe in its M35i version, or the X2 with that engine. It just feels so much more enjoyable. There's more steering feel here. There's more of a hot hatch feel, like, you know, essence to it than in those cars. And the steering is much more precise. I have more feedback in it. I love what AMG has done on this front wheel drive based AMG car. And this is not even the fastest one there's gonna be. There's already a 45 version of the CLA sedan, and there's gonna be 45 versions of the GLA and probably this GLB as well. That should dial the horsepower up from 302 up to about 386 horsepower. And in Europe, they get an even more powerful S model with like 421 horsepower. This is hilarious. This is so great. If you have like an STI or a Golf R and you want something a little bigger for the family, something a little more prestigious, I think this is absolutely the upgrade that you need to go for if you have one of those hot hatchbacks and you're looking for something with a similar feel but in an SUV shape. This is hilarious. Now, you do pay for it in fuel economy. This little turbocharged 4-cylinder is not efficient. You'll get 21 in the city, 26 on the highway, and 23 combined. Those are not great numbers for a 4-cylinder, and you definitely have to be ready for a stiffer ride comfort, but I think for enthusiasts, the GLB 35 scores a win. So that was the 2021 Mercedes-AMG GLB 35. Now, if you don't need all of the AMG power in this model, you can get a regular GLB 250 starting at just over $38,000. Now, the AMG 35 model is a lot more expensive. It starts at $49,500, but as I mentioned, you do not get a lot. A lot of this stuff comes as optional extra equipment. This one is just under $62,000, but you can option one of these well above $70,000. So you do have to pick and choose which options you want unless you want to go nuts. Now, there are other options in case you don't like the boxy looks of the GLB and don't need the size. You've got the curvy GLA as another SUV option. You also have the CLA and A-Class sedans, which are both offered in 35 variants. Now, Mercedes hasn't confirmed it yet, but I think that the GLB is going to get an even faster 45 version with about 382 horsepower. That should be pretty sweet as well. I think that as subcompact luxury SUVs go, especially in the performance realm, this is definitely my favorite. I love the way it looks. I love the practicality of it. I do like the interior, even though some of the materials aren't great. And even though you do have to spend quite a bit to get it, it is my favorite option in this segment. We really hope you've enjoyed this review of the boxy little GLB over here. For more videos like it, subscribe and hit the notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. We also have an app on the iOS and Android stores where you can keep up with the latest and greatest in automotive news. Be sure to check us out on TikTok for fun videos. I'll see you next time.